this morning, I got on the line with the actor, writer, director and producer who's played some very memorable characters, everyone from Fox Mulder on The X-Files to Hank Moody on Californication. But his already impressive CV doesn't end there. David Duchovny is also a singer-songwriter who has released his second album, and he's coming to New Zealand later this month for 2 concerts in Auckland and Wellington. I caught up with him on the phone and began in the usual fashion.
How are you?
Great, thank you. This music career of yours, I've seen it described as late blooming. Did you not do the musical instrument lessons at school like the rest of us did?
I did, but they didn't stick. I played the recorder.
Oh,
I don't know if you know that instrument.
Yeah. It's a New Zealand classic.
That's like a starter woodwind, and I played that probably kindergarten to 2nd or 3rd grade, and I didn't see a big rock and roll future in the recorder, Jethro Tull notwithstanding. The only rock and roll flute. And then I took maybe a guitar lesson when I was 10, and then we stopped that for some reason, and maybe a couple piano lessons, and didn't stick with that. So unfortunately, I didn't really start to learn an instrument until about 6 or 7 years ago when I took up the guitar.
The cool kids in my school on recorder could play the theme song to MASH. I don't know if that was a favourite where you were growing up.
And then later, of course, Stairway to Heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Could work on the recorder.
Did you learn guitar? More recently, did you learn it like most of us learn it by picking a song that you enjoyed and teaching yourself how to play it?
That's exactly how I learned, because I had no intention of doing anything with it aside from playing it on my downtime and just kind of amusing myself. So I thought, well, I'll just go after songs that I like, and I'll learn the chords as I go.
Would you go a bit of Dylan?
Yeah, there was some Dylan, but I think early songs that I was learning was "Wish You Were Here," Pink Floyd.
Oh, cool,
"Broken Arrow," a song by Robbie Robertson. For some reason, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by the Flaming Lips was something that I learned early.
Cool. And I've also heard you say that you were born without pitch, which is quite a thing to
sounds like
quite a thing to overcome.
I get to park in handicap spaces because of that.
But you've learnt to sing. You took a bit of training and you've practiced.
I'm not tone deaf because I could hear that I wasn't singing on pitch, so I was lucky enough to know that.
Yeah.
And I think if you can hear that, then there's hope for you. And I have trained my ear, and I continue to train it daily. It's kind of taken away from like the initial love of the whole thing was like I was going to learn how to play guitar, and I play less and less guitar now because of performing live and recording. They don't need my guitar playing, but I do need to sing.
I saw Steve Martin do a banjo concert. I thought he'd be a pretty good role model for an actor who also makes music.
Well, in a way, yes, but I think Steve Martin's he's like a brilliant banjo player. I think he's been playing it his whole life. So I think as much as I would think of myself as that, I'm never going to get to that. I'm basically a guy who figured out that he can write songs, and I'm not interested as much in becoming a great guitar player. I would love to, but I don't have the time, and I didn't start early enough. And what I found is that I write songs, and I play well enough to do that.
Do you banter much between the songs when you're performing live?
Depends. I like to. Depends what's coming up. Depends what they're saying to me.
Yeah. And that live crowd must be an interesting buzz for you. As far as I know, you've mostly done screen acting, but I wonder if that live feel makes you feel like doing more theatre, or is it something completely different that you're getting out of live music?
I think it's similar to theatre, but it's also completely different because it's really a celebration. And that's the interesting thing, is because I wouldn't say that the songs that I've written thus far are not like, they're not like get up and dance songs. I mean, they're rhythmical, but they're not like, it's not "Don't Worry, Be Happy." They're kind of dark, and I guess they're heavy, and they're songs written by a guy who's my age. It's not about being 20 and having the world all in front of you, So it's funny that I come out, and we're playing rock and roll or whatever, so it's also fun, and yet these songs, they're not necessarily fun thematically. So it's kind of an interesting push and pull that I go through, because I do want to put over the songs as what they are. I don't want to bullshit and just say, these songs aren't what they are. But then again, I also don't want this to be a downer. So it's an interesting kind of a evening.
While we're talking about you being a Renaissance man, have you ever thought about finishing that PhD?
No, I've thought about it, but I never will. I mean, it's kind of, it's not the same as being a medical doctor, but it's similar in that I would have to go back and make myself kind of conversant with all the literary theory and the stuff that I used to know about. But nobody's really clamoring for a book on magic and technology and contemporary American fiction.
Nonetheless, I think you did your MA and the bachelor's in literature. That must be great stuff. All this reading you've done, and I know, people are astounded by how well read you are. That must be great to draw on when you're songwriting.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can draw on, unconsciously, you just draw on stuff. I have found in let's say the 30 songs that I've written in the last few years since I started, that I go to kind of Shakespeare a bit. I go to the Bible. There's stuff that just comes out that's just in me that I'm not necessarily thinking about. Like Every Third Thought is an actual. I wouldn't say it's a reference because I didn't mean it as a reference, but it's a reference. And I think it's in Twelfth Night, and I can't remember the character, but he's retiring, and he says we'll go to an island, and every third thought will be on death, but that's not what the song itself. The Every Third Thought is actually about love and not about death. But that phrase, every third thought, is not my own. It comes from my reading.
We're actually going to play that track shortly. Some questions about your earlier career. My producer's a massive X-Files fan, and she reckons the latest Darren Morgan episode about the Mandela effect is the best episode of the entire X-Files series, and she'd like me to ask if you feel the same way.
It would be hard for me to say it's the best, because I just have different feelings about the other ones when they happened and where I was and where the show was. But it's certainly up there with Darren's other great episodes like Jose Chung's From Outer Space and Clyde Bruckman. So, yeah, I would say definitely top 10.
How was it getting together with Gillian Anderson again after all this time?
Well, we got together about 2.5 years ago, so the rust had been shaken off. And actually this time around, because I feel like we were rusty the last time. This time we were kind of found a groove much more quickly. But when you work that much with somebody for that long period of time, it really is an unspoken kind of communication that you can tap into fairly easily.
You were in the original Twin Peaks, and then you popped up again in the latest season of that. How did you enjoy that?
Yep. I enjoyed it. I wish that I could have done more. I was happy that I could come back and do that. I was actually shooting a show at the time called Aquarius, which was a cop show set in late 60s L.A. So I had kind of a crewish buzz cut, and all I had was a Saturday to go do work for David Lynch on Twin Peaks. So I got downtown on a Saturday night, and they shaved my legs and put the wig on me and tried on some dresses and some fake boobs, and out I went.
Your career's been so interesting, and favourite David Duchovny moments aren't necessarily the ones from those big series. My one was you and the Larry Sanders Show, and I had to ask, I actually thought of you when Garry Shandling died, and I wondered what impact that had on you. I sort of felt that you had quite a connection, you two.
Yeah. I miss him daily. I have a painting of him in my sitting room. He was my best friend as an adult that I ever made in my life, and he was a wise man. He was obviously a very funny man. I find myself wishing I could talk to him about Trump. I know Garry would have interesting insights into what's going on in the world right now. I miss him talking. I miss talking to him about my own personal life. I miss everything about him. So yeah, it was profound and very sad, and still sad.
We can't wait to have you in New Zealand. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.